orders of the Supreme Court of India in recent cases, starting of course with the right to privacy, have, I think, rekindled great hopes and expectations in us of the Supreme Court and indeed of the judiciary itself. And here I would like to also remind everyone present here, Shashi's comments on Rohingyas have to be also seen in the background of his phenomenal experience in the High Commission for Refugees, UN High Commission for Refugees. And it comes from deep knowledge of what is happening across the world. I want to say here that I was not a little disappointed, Shashi, when you made a somewhat pointed and somewhat pointless criticism of Sushma Swaraj's speech in the United Nations. I think it would have been very becoming of somebody who has been so high up in the United Nations and who has been a Minister of State for External Affairs to have probably just made a little comment on the disproportionate reference to our Prime Minister in her speech, but to have gone on and on about Sushma Swaraj's lack of perspective, I thought was unnecessary from one of your specs.
I didn't realize it had gone on and on. In fact, you know, the first time it came was when one of these ubiquitous TV cameras showed up on our doorstep and asked me to comment on the speech, and I just said that, look, I thought it was a political speech aimed at her voters here, and really not about not a speech for the UN podium, and that's all I said. And I thought it would rest there because it was expressed in fairly mild language. To my surprise, the BJP chose to go after me at their official press conference 2 days later and made me out to be some sort of sympathizer of Pakistan because I criticized the speech in which our minister had attacked Pakistan. So then I pointed out in a tweet, so that's why I'm saying going on and on is difficult when you're confined to 280 characters. I said in a tweet, I said, it's a bit rich, was the word I used, for the BJP to attack me for decrying Sushma Swaraj's political speech from the UN platform. For instance, she mentioned Narendra Modi 10 times, and India, on whose behalf she was supposed to speak, just 5 times. So it seems to me that, you know, if you are going to use the UN as a political platform, you really can't hide behind the flag. Now that was the sum total of all I said. Well, if you think that went on and on, I apologize through you to the nation.
Well, 280 characters don't amount to going on and on. But when those 280 characters are seen by 8 million followers, then there is a certain volume that you achieve. But that apart, I think using the United Nations platform for what can be called a semi-political or even a political or a party line was started by one of your very distinguished predecessors, Krishna Menon, whose marathon speech in the United Nations was not meant to convince the United Nations about India's position in Kashmir as much as it was meant to influence the voters of North Pradesh. So Sushma Swaraj has certain precedence to go back.
He still holds the record for the longest speech ever made in the UN. In the midst of which he collapsed in a faint at one point. He had to be taken to hospital. The meeting was adjourned and resumed the next morning with him continuing in full. So that is going to be a hard act to follow, even for Sushma.
Yeah, it is going to be a very hard act to follow, and I don't think we should follow that part of Krishna Menon's precedent. But I must say here also, Shashi, that it's quite wonderful that in 2 or 3 of your observations this evening, you have so clearly stated that you are not entirely with a certain line of thinking, or you are not privy to a certain line of thinking of your party, and this only shows how important it is for a party to have at least this much of leeway, this much of possibility to differ, this much of a chance, a scope to say a slightly different thing or the same thing in a slightly different way, something which the ruling dispensation today just does not permit. Your party, your government was not and is not a party of invertebrates led by a monocratic leader. That is for sure. And I think for that, one has to give history its credit. But I am saying this not just because we both seem to have, or really do have, similar perspectives on most political matters, but also because I think being a devil's advocate is sometimes very good for the other party, in this case, you. I would also say here, Shashi, that in recent years, the level of political debate and discussion in our country, which is another issue of our time, an issue of India, has degenerated to such an extent that people of my generation are left aghast at the decline. Where has democratic courtesy and the civility of conversation disappeared? Is it possible, do you think, in the coming elections, for your party, which is wedded to a culture of give and take, in a cricketing sense, is it possible for you to resist reacting with the same coin, giving back to your opponent in the same manner in which you will get it? Will you resist that temptation and keep your stature?
It's a tough one, Gopal, because to be honest, to some degree we have already lost that particular battle. We have been reacting in terms just as unpleasant, shall we say, as the...
That's another very important, shall I say, admission.
Well, I think it's partly unavoidable. I think we've got to a stage where not only has the BJP's initiative in this regard coarsened our political discourse, but a failure to respond in kind would be seen as weakness by our own supporters and by those whom we need to appeal to. It's very striking that on many issues, one finds that the Congress party, when it takes what would seem otherwise to be a very reasonably strong opposition stand, is accused by its own well-wishers of not having been robust enough. And that's partly because the yardstick for what is a robust attack has really been laid down by the BJP and by its own Prime Minister when he was in the opposition. So it becomes difficult, and I think that would be idle of me to pretend that we will sort of be extremely gentlemanly while we're being kicked below the belt on every second occasion by the other side. And I share with you the concern that this is most unfortunate. I've written about this myself, as I'm sure you have in the past, that we do really need to get beyond the levels to which our politics has descended, because ultimately, once a government is chosen, we all have to work with it. The choice of the people has to be respected. And that means that those, in any case, who have been given by the voters the custodianship of the nation's assets and responsibilities are entitled to exercise, if you like, the authority that comes with it, and we are obliged to recognize that authority. I think, Rahul Gandhi did say that once in Parliament, that, when he said something about Mr. Modi addressing the BJP benches, and he said, "Your Prime Minister," and they shouted back at him, he immediately corrected himself, said, "No, he's my Prime Minister too." And I think that is, well, Rahul was so wise that he said, yes, he is my Prime Minister, but he's not the Prime Minister of the farmers and the workers, which was a good political comeback. But he did concede the first point, that he is the Prime Minister of all Indians. And I think we have to accept that in this case, it ill behooves a democracy like ours for the discourse to be so cheapened that people holding ministerial office are busy insulting their opponents and people of other persuasions. I really would love to see it change, but I wouldn't be as much of a chronic optimist as I am. I wouldn't be confident that I could see where that change is going to come from. Because the people who are now busy abusing each other are the ones who will have to continue to lay down the terms of that discourse in the next few months leading up to the elections.
I think when the BJP and its leader had once spoken of Congress-free India, Congress-Mukt India, the Congress reacted almost reflexively and in what can be called mime, to say that we are wanting the BJP-Mukt India, BJP-free India. This was not only unoriginal, but it was also very unfortunate. And I think it's very good that Rahul Gandhi said that no, we do not want a BJP Mukt India. BJP must have its place, must have its democratic space. And I think he added that we would like that space to be in the opposition. And so that is an important